Thank you, councillors. First on the agenda, we have the prayer and acknowledgement of country. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. O God, grant that by the knowledge of thy will, all we may resolve shall work together for good. We pray through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I would also like to pay respect to the elders, both past and present, of the Wiradjuri nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal people from other nations who are present.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, councillors. Okay, councillors, first on the agenda we have leave of absence. We have no councillors absent tonight, so we will move straight on to public forum. First speaker tonight is Margaret McDonald from the Dubbo Environmental Group. Margaret, if you could come to the microphone just there at the rail, and you've got 5 minutes to address the council. Thank you.
Thank you. Dubbo Environment Group includes 17 members who all reside in Dubbo and local towns. We wish to voice our concerns regarding the mayoral minute of February the 22nd, which welcomed the proposal by St John's Junior Rugby League Club to purchase and develop a 10-hectare piece of land at the 62-hectare Regan Park site, which is currently public land. If the rescission motion to lift the 2018 council policy, which classified this area to be kept as undeveloped, is passed, it could pave the way for the whole area to be developed. We strongly question those councillors who voted for this, their motives in 1, considering the matter so urgent that no public consultation or communication was afforded, 2, withdrawing Dubbo's expectations that the Commission green space of 2013 would be secure, and 3, not giving the site the environmental, cultural and Aboriginal heritage significance that it deserves. Any riverbank developments should be designed sensitively to enhance the quality of the river and improve residents' quality of life by enabling people to experience nature without leaving the urban environment. Our hot, dry city on the plains has witnessed serious loss of natural aesthetics through settlement, expansion and the consequences of climate change. Many urban drainage lines and sumps were once natural streams and wetlands, but these have been highly modified to cope with increased runoff caused by urban development. More football fields with grandstands and other infrastructure, lawns, piping, sewerage, fertiliser, weed killer and irrigation does nothing to protect or regenerate our precious riverbank resource. In 2018, the Progressive Mid-Coast Council engaged with experts to embark upon the Manning River Bank Revegetation Scheme, where over 2.5 kilometres of riverbank was fenced off and planted with 3,000 native trees. They were able to access the Fish Habitat Action Grants from the Recreational Fishing Trusts. Mr Shields has said that the previous Dubbo City Council Regan Park design is too expensive and has not attracted funding. We wonder then how the expensive Wiradjuri Park relocation has been funded against the wishes of our Tubbergar elders and without public consultation. We also wonder why a less expensive, modified green space design for Regan Park has not been pursued, when public consultation for this has already occurred. The New South Wales Department of Primary Industry states, quote, "In freshwater environments, development has caused fish populations to decline through the removal of vegetation from riverbanks, wetlands, lands and floodplains, increased sediment, nutrients and pollutants into streams. Urban, industrial and agricultural areas can be important sources of nutrient pollution, especially where riparian vegetation is degraded water infiltration reduced, and runoff channel directly into waterways without being treated. Council has made serious errors with regard to our riverbank management in the past. The planting of plane trees along Tracker Riley Walkway was one such error. The damage and financial cost from exotic weeds spreading downstream from these trees can never be assessed, but the subsequent removal of the trees certainly can be. The ratepayer loses out from such hasty, poorly thought out decisions which often consider short-term business goals before the best future livability requirements of our residents. Dubbo Environment Group strongly urges Council to postpone the rescission motion on Regan Park until extensive public consultation is held. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs McDonald. Up next we have Mr Tom Tranby regarding Development Application D202139. Mr Tranby, if you could approach the lectern, and the same with the previous speaker. We've got 5 minutes to address the Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors. A few weeks ago, the Daily Liberal quoted Councillor Lawrence saying, "Knocking back planned due to pokies with reference to the Devil's Hollow application was not your job, wasn't our job, your job as councillors." And that got me thinking about what is your job as councillors. It is complex, I grant you that. Every day you have to make decisions based on complex arguments and often competing factors. But one thing present in all of your decisions, in all of the processes you need to go through, two things are integrity and fairness. That is, it is your job to uphold the integrity of the planning instruments, of your planning instruments, and it is your job to ensure this process is fair for all. Regarding the Bunnings proposal, it does not comply with the DCP and the LEP, and I know it technically doesn't need to. It needs to only comply with the Heritage Conservation Incentive Clause, but it doesn't comply with that. Quite simply, the presence of a financial contribution towards conserving retained heritage relics of a previously approved DA is not a consideration under Section 5.1, Clause 5.1. And on that basis, approving it on that basis would not only damage the integrity of the LEP, but the Heritage Conservation Clause itself. Furthermore, the approval of the Bunnings proposal would highlight the inherent unfairness of this process. You see, on one hand we have Bunnings, a multinational corporation who have hired 14 consultants to work for months on whatever budget they want and produce over 600 pages for us, on the other hand, to decipher within 21 days, 600 pages to decipher within 21 days, figure out what's happening across the road, come up with a response in between work and family commitments, come up with a response. So you see, this process is inherently unfair, but that's where you come in, to balance those books. You councillors are our representatives. You represent my interests, you represent the interests of the entire community. And that is what is meant to make this process fair. This brings me to my first question in regard to representing the community interests. Mr Mayor, when I spoke to you a few weeks ago, you asserted that if a referendum was held on this issue, that the majority of Dubbo would support it. My question to you is, in light of the 424 signatures, online signatures, 270 paper-based signatures and 66 submissions against this proposal, do you have any empirical evidence to maintain your assertion that the majority of Dubbo Shire support this development? Short of the pseudo-referendum which is going to happen at the end of this year, is there any empirical evidence to counter the 760 expressions against this proposal? For without that, I fail to maintain how you would maintain a position against this proposal. Look, don't get me wrong, I am for bigger Bunnings than Dubbo. I love Bunnings. And I'm for the economic benefit it brings. And this is also not a case of not in my backyard. I live on Palmer Street. What I am against is the blatant circumnavigation of due process which we have to abide by, the due process which you set out in your planning instruments. I am opposed to the message that approving this signal would send would be that the rules in your planning instruments do not apply if you're a multinational corporation. Mr Mayor, during our conversation the other week, you agreed that those economic benefits are not tied to that site. The economic benefits from Bunnings would be realised no matter where the site was, no matter where the building was sited. The only difference for this site over another site is to Bunnings' bottom line. You see, this site, it's a greenfield site which has freshly been levelled and cleared. The economic benefit to the town is not tied to that site. The only benefit is Bunnings' bottom line. Now look, I don't blame Bunnings for putting in this proposal. They have a team, they have every staff of theirs, plus consultants working in the interest of their bottom line. If I work for Bunnings, I would put in the same proposal. But you guys don't work for Bunnings. You guys work for us. This should be a simple decision. Building on Bunnings on residential zone land, it will not have support from Heritage New South Wales and will not have support from your planning division. It would not have support from the Land Environment Court. We saw just last year, Fox vs North Sydney Council, a proposal on the Heritage Clause was denied due to the impact on the amenity of the surrounding area. And finally, it does not have community support. The only material benefit for this proposal is associated with the location, is not the benefit to the town, but to the benefit of their bottom line. So my question tonight is simple, and that is, when it comes to this proposal, please uphold the integrity of your planning instruments.
Okay, thank you, Mr Tremby. I've got to actually finish you up there, if you can just finish what you're saying, and then... Yeah.
No worries, thank you. I've only got 2 sentences left. So my question tonight is simple. When it comes to voting this proposal, please uphold the integrity of the planning instruments by taking New South Wales and your planning division's lead and deny this application, and uphold the fairness in the system by taking the lead of the people who voted for you and require Bunnings to follow your own rules by building on appropriately zoned land or going through the process of rezoning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, councillors. Next on the agenda, we have confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting. Can I have a mover of that one, please? Moves Councillor Moore, seconded Councillor Parker. Any discussion or debate? No, I put that. All those in favour? Carried. For next up, councillors, we have mayoral minutes, CCL 21/33, the extended season for the Dubbo Aquatic Leisure Centre. I formally move that. Councillors, I've had correspondence from Councillor Diffie.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary but significant interest in this matter, as both of my daughters are paid members of Arana Aquatic Swimming Club and swim on a weekly basis with them, and I will leave the room on this matter.
Further declarations? Councillor Gumley.
Yes, I also have a declaration of interest in the same regard as Councillor Diffie, and I propose to leave the room.
Thank you. Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Once again, I also have a non-pecuniary significant interest. Once again, my daughter is a member of the Wellington Swim Club, and so I will be leaving the room.
Okay, councillors, in recent times I've had representations from 2 of our swimming clubs who use the Dubbo Aquatic Leisure Centre seeking the extension of their season, and whilst they've got varying reasons for extending their season, and I thought, considering we had something similar come up for the Wellington Aquatic Leisure Centre not long ago, that it'd be appropriate that we also bring this matter for councillors to determine. So, councillors, there are pros and cons of extending this. The obvious pros are we get some kids and some clubs who would benefit significantly from having their clubs being able to train at this facility for a much longer time. The cons are obviously the cost associated to the ratepayers on this, particularly going into a year where COVID has knocked us flat almost with a near $8 million loss. With us denying the request from the Wellington Aquatic Leisure Centre last year, I think we need to take that into account when we're setting a precedent for potentially doing it for this Dubbo Aquatic Leisure Centre as well. I don't think it's wise that we should necessarily have one set of rules for this Aquatic Leisure Centre and yet another set for another one when it comes to it. Councillors, I've always said we need to embark almost on a citywide mission to get our public and our residents to understand how our planning mechanisms work within local government, and that is everything is done by a management plan. My view is the appropriate time, if we are to look at the extending of seasons or for ticket prices or whatever, is during that management plan which we adopt each and every year prior to the financial year. It's effectively the budget. That's where we need to have, and where community groups need to have that discussion with council, with councillors, to determine within our own budget how much we can afford to run this facility. Doing things ad hoc isn't necessarily, well, certainly isn't the best way financially to be running these sort of facilities. So, and whilst it's very hard for me to say, I don't support extending these periods, because, look, I certainly support the swim clubs. They're doing absolutely fantastic things at the moment. It's just a message, and it's a precedent that we've said no to Wellington. We are also going into quite, we've had some quite severe financial battering because of COVID, and I think that we really need to consider these before we move on extending the seasons significantly. So I'll open this up for debate from the public, from the councillors. Any comment or questions? Councillor Etheridge.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to add an amendment to your motion.
Sure.
That council advises swimming clubs that it is unable to extend the DLC season because of financial and operational requirements associated with the impact of COVID-19. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, I've got a amendment. Can I have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Lawrence. Discussion or debate on the amendment. Effectively, the amendment is to say to not extend the season. Councillor Etheridge.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. These decisions aren't made lightly. They're really difficult when it comes to our kids. But I echo everything that you have said, and we just aren't a bottomless pit. As you said, we've been beaten up pretty bad with drought and then COVID and myriad of other things. And there is a procedure that groups like this should be going through at estimates times when they just a little bit more forward thinking would be much to their advantage. So if we do it for Dubbo, then we do it for Wellington. I've always said what's good for Dubbo is good for Wellington, and so therefore we'd have a double whammy. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Etheridge. Councillor Lawrence.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, this is something that we discussed as a group in the briefing, and we were very concerned to understand exactly how much it would cost to embark on this extra month of opening. And at the end of the day, we just have to make a tough decision, I think, which is that we really can't justify the use of a public asset that the entire community pays for an additional month for what is, by any reasonable assessment, a pretty small group of people. It's just too much money. It's something that I know that everyone around the table would like to support. In some ways, it would be the easier decision to support it because we all want, these people, these kids, particular, to be able to train. But yeah, look, I just don't think we can justify another month of opening of a huge public asset that loses a lot of money and costs a lot of money to run for this particular purpose. So, unfortunately, and with a heavy heart, I'll be supporting the report.
Okay, Councillor Ryan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to echo that. We spent a lot of time talking about this in the briefing. The two things that concern me are the ad hoc nature. If we do vote for the extension, we'll have every club thinking it's open slather, and just this 1 month extension would cost the broader ratepayers $28,000. If you multiply that by 10 or 20 or 50 different groups coming, all of a sudden that gets into very significant money on a year where we really have to be thinking, where can we pare things back? I think Councillor Etheridge was spot on. We need to convince all sporting organisations and all groups to come and talk when the budgetary processes are being sorted out, when the line items are being worked out, when things are being weighed against other things, rather than have thought bubbles at the last minute. I do echo Councillor Lawrence. I think it's a fantastic asset for our kids. I note that that one carnival in particular has been put back because of COVID by a fair distance, so they won't be able to train at the outdoor pool for that. But it's just too big a price to pay. Thank you.
Okay, further comment, councillors? No, I put the amendment. All those in favour? Opposed? The amendment now becomes, it's carried. The amendment now becomes the motion. All those in favour of the motion? All those opposed? Declare the motion carried. If someone can please invite Councillors Gumley, Grant and Diffie back into the room, please. Okay, so councillors, next on the agenda is another Merrill Minute, expressions of interest for the Dubbo City Regional Airport commercial accommodation provision. I formally move that one. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm going to declare a non-pecuniary, non-significant interest. My brother and sister-in-law run and operate a motel in town, so I'll leave the room during any discussions pertaining to this matter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, councillors. I'll speak to this Merrill Minute. Look, councillors, we have a golden opportunity at our airport now to take it to the next level. Our airport, in my mind, is the jewel in the crown of everything Dubbo Regional Council has been doing over the last so many years. Our growth at the airport has been phenomenal. With partnership with the New South Wales Government and other agencies, we have seen that much building work out there. Other councils in New South Wales, in fact around Australia, are absolutely envious of what we've been achieving out there. In fact, it came to a head the year before last, not the COVID year, where we won Regional Airport of the Year for the entire country. Our airport is recognised by the industry as being the best of the best, and the growth will continue to come, certainly once COVID's over. Councillors, we know with all this new development out here that it gives us more commercial opportunities, and that opportunity is clearly for us to have an airport hotel. We have the land ready to go for it. And with Dubbo's tourism figures and numbers at the moment, now is the time, I believe, we should go to the market and ask them what exactly they think would work best at our airport when it comes to an airport hotel. I personally see this airport hotel as being a big proper brand with a proper bar and restaurant. I also personally see that there could be other businesses surrounding it, potentially a service station, potentially other entities in that commercial area zone of the airport, which would add value to our airport business. Councillors, I think the best way on this is expressions of interest, because there are so many different things and ideas out there that potential hotel operators or developers could come to us and suggest that we may not even have dreamt of yet. So let's put it to the market, to the entire country. To people who are interested in doing this sort of development, what do they think? Get them to give us a proposal, and then we can work out whether it fits our business plan and whether it fits the best thing for Dubbo. We, as I said, councillors, our airport has got phenomenal growth. In fact, when I first became chairman of Dubbo City Regional Airport back in 2004, we only had 90,000 passengers going through those gates every year. We're well before COVID, I should say, we're now into 220,000 passengers a year. The growth has just been absolutely phenomenal, and the way you keep that growth going is by keep bringing those services and businesses to the airport. It was only just last week that we announced a brand new facility for flight simulators at the airport. 4 new flight simulators paid for and operated by the RFS, with Dubbo Regional Council being the project managers for this building, is another great achievement for the airport. But what it's going to do is going to put more people out there working full-time each and every day, more visitors out there working full-time each and every day. With the coming police training facility out there, there's going to be more people there each and every day. It's going to be a market for further accommodation, further hospitality at our airport. So this is an opportunity we must grab, and we must grab it now. We must seek those expressions of interest so we can test the market to see what extra grand ideas we can bring to this airport. So I'll formally move that. I'll ask if there are any other councillors who wish to speak to it. Councillor Moore.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I fully support your mayoral minute. As you're fully aware and Council's fully aware, this has been in our master plan for some years now. Probably not to come into effect for some years, but due to COVID, we've decided to bring up this forward. There is a great benefits within not only the Dubbo community but the wider area when people utilise Dubbo Regional Airport for their travel means, whether they're from here or out west or wherever. If having a motel or a hotel at Dubbo Regional Airport gives them the capability of getting off a plane and walking straight into a hotel, not having to wait for a taxi, and the next morning if they have to catch an early flight, not getting up at silly hours of the morning and travelling as well. So that's a benefit as well, but we also benefit the airlines as well, so their pilots and so on can stay at the airport. That's more rest for them when you look in the long terms of their pressure that they're under when we go back into full swing. We'll see that the airlines will take this opportunity up, I believe, but also due to the accommodation areas out at Dubbo Regional Airport, this just further enhances the other government agencies that use the airport as their precinct and their everyday working, that they do have accommodation, and accommodation they don't have to travel into town for, and at the end of a long day and a busy day they can just use the airport. Our airport has suffered a significant loss due to COVID, approximately $5 million. This is a private an investment. This is not a council investment. At the moment, to gain grants and so on will be very hard, but I think if we do our applications correctly and move forward with that, then I dare say there will be money coming forward. Another reason why this is a good idea, Mr Mayor, is simply that money coming in of the airport, that we don't have to charge exorbitant landing fees and security fees in the long run, and that is a major significant factor when people travel, having large landing fees and security fees. So with other assets like this gaining money through council budget, we will be able to keep those fees to a minimum, which will be good in the long run, and we won't have to put them up significantly to cover our costs. So thank you, Mr Mayor.
Further comment, councillors? Councillor Etheridge.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I find this really exciting. This could be a great opportunity for us. I echo everything that you've said and Councillor Moore, so I don't think there's too much more to say except let's put it out there and see what happens. Thank you.
Further comment, councillors? No? Okay, I put that. All those in favour? No, declare it carried. If someone can invite Councillor Ryan back into the room, please. Okay, thank you, councillors. Next on the agenda is CCL 21/35, Dubbo inclusion in subsidised airline flights and mayoral minutes. I formally move that mayoral minute. I'll speak to it now. Councillors, every now and then something makes me cranky, if you guys don't already know that. And this is one of those things. as you would know, the federal government recently announced subsidised flights to a lot of Australia, namely Western Australia and Queensland. In fact, there is quite a lot of destinations in Queensland that now are effectively going to have half-price ticket sales to those regional ports as a way to stimulate their tourism industry. In fact, there is only one port in New South Wales, being the one in the far south coast, that's going to get this sort of backup and benefit from the federal government. Councillors, the problem with this is that, yes, it can be said that Dubbo is doing very well with tourism. In fact, the previous mayoral minute, we're taking advantage of our great, fantastic tourism numbers. But the problem with this policy of the federal government is that it is effectively taking our hard-earned tourism dollars, the people who would choose to visit Dubbo, it's effectively subsidising them with taxpayer money to go to another state. Councillors, we have worked very, very hard in this community to control COVID. In fact, the New South Wales government has worked very hard in this community for COVID. I note that apart from the main nationwide shutdown, when there was an outbreak, the New South Wales government simply closed the suburb that it was affecting. They didn't go down the path of the Queensland government or the Western Australian government and just totally and utterly stopped that economy of those individual states in one of the most reckless economic vandalising behaviour I've ever seen. Councillors, in my mind, Queensland has brought on their tourism woes in their own right, and places like Western New South Wales, who have already done it tough because of drought beforehand, should not have to have their taxpayer money fund their mistakes. We should also note too that the Dubbo City Regional Airport isn't just about tourism. In fact, tourism isn't even the main factor of our visiting numbers. Our main numbers going through our regional airport is business, in fact medical. Each and every day, literally dozens of medicos fly in and fly out of the Dubbo City Regional Airport. This is before COVID. Now they land here, they may very well go and work at Dubbo practices, or they could go further out west like a lot of them do. At the moment, with so many limited flights coming into Dubbo, nowhere near the almost hourly flights that we used to have, medicos, being those doctors or other medical specialists, are finding it very, very hard to access our airport. With federal government subsidies to our airport, we would be likely to be able to see a further increase in frequency from either airline, Qantas or Rex. But without these subsidies, the frequency is not going to increase rapidly, therefore having a direct attack and a direct negative impact on trying to get these medical doctors back to the bush. We need to say very, very clearly to the federal government that Western New South Wales needs to be included in this as well. You can't just go and again back Queensland up because they stuffed up. The whole of the country has done it tough from COVID for a myriad of different reasons. And that being the case, councillors, I certainly encourage you to support this mayoral minute, because we do need to say as one voice to the federal government, and I'd also encourage other councils across New South Wales as well to, pardon the pun, but get on board and get this policy amended so New South Wales is also included. Thank you. Is there any further speakers on this one? Councillor Lawrence.
Are you able to inform us by what criteria the existing locations were chosen by the federal government for the subsidy?
The criteria was based on how much tourism losses that the areas affected have sustained. Now, New South Wales' success has obviously been our downfall when it comes to tourism losses. As I said earlier, Queensland went down the path of just closing their entire state. They didn't care where the outbreaks were or anything like that, or just limiting visits from the northern beaches. They just cut the whole thing down. In other words, behaved pretty poorly. And now Western New South Wales, even though we've had very good tourism numbers, are going to lose tourism numbers into the future because of what Queensland did effectively. Further comment, councillors? Councillor Moore.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. One of the things that are annoying about this is our council has been on the front foot from day one as soon as COVID hit, especially when it comes to our Ballina, Byron Bay experiment that we had that's been rather successful. Now, that was done between the two councils here, plus Fly Pelican, which is the airline that chosen for these destinations, and it has worked extremely well. We had $30,000 put aside to say if there's a failure, we haven't touched it. Gone nowhere near to touching it. I know that we have approached the federal member for Parks, Mark Horton, and we explained to him that these operations can be done when there's mutual agreement between councils and an airline. The trouble with this is there's big ticket airlines like Qantas and Virgin which have done it extremely hard, but there is also little airlines within inside our country with Fly Pelican, Link Airlines, Allianz, that have continued to fly and continue to keep this country moving, even though none of our mines and so on have closed down during the COVID attack. But in saying that, Fly Pelican have been extremely good at our experiment when we went to Byron Bay and Ballina. I don't know why the federal government, and we have, considering that we have had contact with them, come forward to this council and speak to our director and speak to the manager of the airport and councillors and say, how did you make this work? This fundamentally, as I said previously, this has injected $1.4 million just into our economy in the time it's been running since August last year. Now, that's an incredible amount of money due to COVID and the restrictions that are put on by other premiers and people not moving around the state. But in saying that, the patronage has been both ways. It's not just Dubbo people going to the coast. There's plenty of people from Byron Bay and that area coming out to stay in this area. Now, all tourism reports say that the average night that people stay in an area is 2.8 days, I think it is. They've been staying here for 7 or 8 days, well beyond the expectations that the tourism operators expect people to stay in an area. And that's been significant. As I said, $1.4 million in not even just a bit over 6 months of this operating, and that is great news, and great news for putting Dubbo on the map. The government should have come to us and see regional airports and see how they can make it work and work effectively instead of using big ticket operators. I feel sorry for the smaller operators that have come on board and have kept this country going and not just relied on international travel, but relied on coming to sensible councils like Fly Pelican that have been going gangbusters doing, I wouldn't say deals, but doing agreements with councils to make people travel direct to routes instead of having to go through Sydney. So unfortunately they haven't come to us with that. They haven't come and asked us how we've done it and how we've done it extremely successfully, and we've done it profitably as well, and we've kept this region, $1.4 million back into this region, and it didn't take much at all. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Further comment, councillors? Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. One thing that I find incredibly ironic is the fact that all these subsidised flights to routes along the coast are already incredibly cheap compared to what we have to bear every time we want to fly to Sydney or somewhere else. You know, when you look at flights of less than $100 between major destinations as a normal thing, and you think that our taxpayer dollars are going to cut that in half when it could be hundreds of dollars to fly from Dubbo to Sydney, you just wonder how these criteria are arrived at, and you think that the people who are making up these criteria obviously haven't had to suffer these incredibly high rip-off prices that country people have struggled under for so long. Thank you.
Further comment, councillors? No, I put that. All those in favour? Those opposed? Declare it carried. Up next, CCL 21/36, Local News Service for Western New South Wales. I'll formally move that, councillors. Councillors, we had notice recently, well, the community had notice recently of Southern Cross Austereo and WIN Television again swapping television affiliations. So WIN will return to Channel 9 and Southern Cross Austereo will return to the Channel 10 feed in this area. When WIN Television last had the 9 news feed for this area, they had a fairly comprehensive local news bulletin for half hour every night around 6 o'clock. Once WIN left 9 and went to 10, 10 being the lower rating of the commercial networks, they couldn't sustain having a local news bulletin, so they ended up dropping that, and Channel 9 or Southern Cross started a news service in their new Channel 9 affiliation. Now that there's been an announcement that the affiliations will swap again, Southern Cross has announced that they will be ceasing their local news bulletins in this area as of the end of this financial year. Councillors, this is now the ideal opportunity for WIN Television, once it resumes Channel 9's affiliation, to reinstate WIN local news for this area. We should not be simply having to rely on one television news service here out in Western New South Wales. We already know that Dubbo doesn't get necessarily its fair share of television news here already in this television footprint. We certainly need to have more diverse services. Over the last so many years, there's been so much backtracking and withdrawal of media services in this area. We've seen everything from the demise of the Wellington Times to other newspapers simply not being as thick and juicy anymore as what it used to be, right through to even some other radio news outlets getting thinner and thinner. In fact, councillors, you even do look at the existing television news bulletins and you'll find that they are stretching and stories so far. We're getting more and more news stories from other markets coming in here to fill the gaps because there are nowhere near as many journalists being employed as what there used to be. So I think, again, this is the time for us to start saying to WIN, bring back that great service WIN News that you used to have. You've got to remember, councillors, that local news and information is so important for local communities. If the local community doesn't know what's going on, they can't contribute to society as good as what they can. We should be leading that charge to try and get these news services reinstated. Just like this council has tried to get a newspaper in Wellington back up again, we should also be trying on those other outlets as well to get news services re-established. So I put that. Any further comment or discussion on the matter? No? Okay. All those in favour? Right, no. Carried. Now, councillors, we move to CCL 21/37, the Audit and Risk Management Committee meeting minutes of the 20th of November 2020. Can I have a mover of that one, please? Move Councillor Jones. A seconder, please. Councillor Parker. Any discussion or debate? No, I put that. All those in favour? Right, no, carried. Now we move to CCL 21/38, report of the Development and Environment Committee meeting of the 8th of March 2021. Can I have a mover of that one, please? Councillor Moore, seconded Councillor Ryan. Any discussion or debate? No, I put that. All those in favour? No, carried. Now we go to CCL 21/39, report of the Infrastructure, Livability and Livability Committee meeting of the 8th of March 2021. Can I have a mover of that one, please? Moved Councillor Moore, seconded Councillor Parker. Any discussion or debate? No, I put that. All those in favour? No, carried. In this last of the committee, CCL 21/40, report of the Culture, Economy and Corporate Committee meeting of the 8th of March 2021. Moved Councillor Gumley, seconded Councillor Ryan. Any discussion or debate on that one? No, I'll put that. All those in favour? No, carried. Now we come to notices of motion. CCL 21/41, housing availability. Councillor Lawrence.
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move an alternate motion that this may be deferred to a future meeting of council.
Okay.
I'll just speak to that briefly.
I need a seconder first, Councillor Lawrence. A seconder, Councillor Grant. Okay, away you go.
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. I certainly wouldn't want to resist the idea of this not going to some sort of a workshop so that we can be informed about it. We've of course been given some indication from staff about the amount of work hours from staff that it would take if this motion was passed, and that's quite an important matter. I did speak to staff before I drafted the motion and in the process of that, and had agreed to move it to the June meeting in terms of the report coming back. But those questions of staff resources are obviously important and significant. But so too is issues of housing in our community. And we now have a record low vacancy rate. And anyone in Dubbo that is looking to find accommodation, particularly as a tenant, but also as a home purchaser, will know just how hard it is. And I certainly know people who are very much in that basket. These trends are getting worse, and it's widely talked about that they're getting worse because of COVID-19, and there's talk about movements from the city to the country and so forth. I'm not exactly sure how real and substantial they are, and sometimes these things can be a bit hyped. But if there certainly is to be a sustained movement of population from the cities to the country, then it's going to affect us in a very substantial way. There has long been a shortage of medium and high density housing stock in Dubbo. That's something that I certainly learned about when I was in a position of having to recruit lawyers to come here and work. And a lot of them were young single people with reasonably high disposable incomes. And they often found themselves in units not really of a very high quality. And they often also found themselves in 2- and 3-bedroom houses on 750 square metre blocks. It's just part of the housing picture here in Dubbo. There is a shortage of medium and high density. And look, that is due to a whole combination of circumstances. Part of it certainly is to do with questions of zoning and so forth, and very contentious decisions have been made in the past, probably driven by populism, I think, to some degree, but they have had an impact on these issues. So look, there's a whole range of issues in terms of housing, certainly things that I will bring back to council. I note that I'm moving that it be deferred to a future meeting of council, not the meeting in April or the meeting of May. But it's important that workshop happens soon, and I'll certainly be bringing it back to council, if not in April, in May. It's not a matter that I'm going to allow to simply drift off the agenda, because it's not just about land supply. And if there is, for example, in some ways that the market is not succeeding, the market is failing, then there may well be a leadership role for council. Our powers and our influence are not just to do with LEPs that we pass and particular zoning arrangements that we make. It's also about the leadership role that we choose to play when we bring stakeholders together. So for anyone to say that they know what the problem is, and the problem is dealt with within these existing mechanisms, well, it may be that they're not quite appreciating the leadership role that council maybe should be playing in this question of housing, because we want our city and our region to be the best that it can be. These problems are across regional New South Wales, but I would certainly like to think that our region would deal with it best. And the organisation who will lead in ensuring best practice is this council. There's no one else who's going to lead on it. So I certainly hope that no one in this room or in the community who's listening to it thinks that I'm taking the foot off the pedal here, or that I'm not going to take this issue forward. I certainly am, but I wouldn't want to be seen to be standing in the way of councillors having workshops and councillors getting information, because those things are certainly important, and that's why I'm moving this alternate motion.
Further comment, councillors? No? I put that. All those in favour? No, carry. Councillors, we move on to the second notice of motion, CCL 21/42, Apex Oval Parking. Councillor Gumley. Yep, so moved. A seconder, Councillor Ryan. Any discussion or debate? Councillor Gumley.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. It's a bit of a no-brainer, really. In my view, we've got a premier sporting facility in Dubbo. It attracts A-League games. We've got a number of NRL fixtures on the books now, and of course we have our regular junior and senior weekend sport, and we just simply have a entire lack of sufficient parking. We've got a small tract of council land in the precinct. Most people will probably see it as a dust bowl in summer and a swamp in winter. People park there in any event, but it's time really to bring the precinct up to scratch and start providing the facilities for the people who use it. And in order to start attracting some funding, I only heard on the radio on the way to the meeting our local MP, Mr Saunders, talking about infrastructure projects being the way out of our COVID economic difficulties across the state, and these are the things that can get that ball rolling, to get a plan organised and back to council, start looking at potential funding. It's an obvious place to start, and I'd encourage all the councillors to support the motion. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Do you further comment on this matter? Councillor Moore.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I support Councillor Gumley's motion. Having walked many miles up at that football oval through dust and mud, this is a long time coming. Many people that travel up there realise how hard it is to park in that area, and especially when it's inclement weather. It's either you end up with mud on your boots or you end up with dust, and it's not really well received from the people in Chelmsford Drive either, when people are leaving that area and there's dust and so on flowing into their houses. So well done, Councillor Gumley. I just hope we can pull forward with some grant funding to get this done. As you said, we do have a magnificent oval up there. We do have some remarkable sporting events that are coming to that oval, which is good, and there's nothing worse than having bad parking. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Any further speakers on this matter? No? Okay. I put that. All those in favour? No, carried. Now, councillors, we move to CCL 21/43, focusing on beautification of the Macquarie River corridor of the Dubbo Central Business District. And it's a notice of rescission in the names of myself, Councillor Moore and Councillor Parker. Can I have Councillor Moore and Councillor Parker either move or second the rescission? Move Councillor Moore, seconded Councillor Parker. So now we're on to the debate on the rescission, that Council determined the notice of motion rescission on the 11th of March 2021, and that the modified Regan Park plan of 2013 be withdrawn. Discussion or debate on that matter? Yeah. No, it will be a matter arising of this. Needs to go through first, then it's a matter of arising. Discussion or debate on the rescission motion? No, I put that. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Now, okay, yep, all right, carried. I still declare it carried. Now we move to the. I understand. I declare it carried. Now we understand there's a matter arising. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to put that the Director, Livability, provide a further report regarding a review of the Regan Park Master Plan, along with the River Corridor Master Plan for Dubbo, and incorporate environmental related activities, sporting and leisure related activities.
Can I have a seconder of that one? Councillor Etheridge. Any discussion or debate? No discussion or debate on this matter? Okay. Councillor Ryan. Yeah. Councillor Ryan, then Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've had a lot of representation on this, and there's a lot of people who have told me they want it to remain pristine. There are many people who've told me that they would like a mix of ovals and walking tracks. Certainly the river corridor and the walking track I think is far more valued now even than it was when the original Regan Park consultation happened. I think we do need to get a lot of input. We need to have a bird's eye view of what we need from the Troy Bridge to the Dundullimal Bridge. For instance, just one specific example, people have said, well, why can't St John's Rugby League go to the police paddock where there's room for 4 ovals? And that is a very simplistic answer, but if that happened, touch football, which needs to expand, if they then went somewhere else in the city, you would have parents dropping kids down, some to the current touch football ovals, others might have to go to East Dubbo or somewhere else. So we don't really want to split things up. We don't want it to be ad hoc. We want to know what the community expects, what the community needs. Initially, for the benefit of anyone who is unsure, we took Regan Park off the table purely to, with a fairly blunt instrument, purely to concentrate our efforts on beautifying the CBD. That has been incredibly successful. Staff did an incredibly good job and attracted millions of dollars of state government funding, which is going to give us a stage in the CBD riverbank, the interactive artwork on the new jail plaza, and all sorts of things. So it's been an incredible success. Now I think we need to have another look in 2021, see what the community wants, what the community needs. Some people are going to want things to remain as it is. Other people are going to want all sorts of different things. And I think it is a complex matter, and I think we have to get the balance right. Thank you.
Councillor Lawrence.
I certainly support Councillor Ryan's motion. It ensures that the Regan Park Master Plan of 2013 still lives, in the sense that it will be considered and taken along with this process of developing a new proposal for the whole of the river corridor. I think that's really important. It's a bit complicated, this issue, and it obviously relates closely to things that occurred at the last council meeting. And I know there's members of the public here who've spoken about it passionately and very well. I was certainly not comfortable at all with what was proposed in terms of the mayoral minute at the last council meeting, and it's been quite widely discussed, and both yourself and me, Mr Mayor, have spoken in the media about it. It's really a good thing that we have citizens who are concerned when there's a last-minute proposal for a council with no consultation and half an hour of notice to the councillors to give in-principle support to handing over public land to private interest. And I really want to commend the people in the community who express concern about that. And I'm certainly not suggesting anything untoward in what occurred, but it was appalling practice. It was the worst thing I've seen in my time on council. And this idea that you try to enlist the support of councillors with half an hour notice to give in-principle support to handing over public land to private interest, that is something that I would never support. And I want to make it clear to people here and people that are listening that my support for the rescission motion was very much contingent on what Councillor Ryan has moved and ensuring that that original plan is still there, is still considered and plays a key role in what is developed and proposed to us, because years of consultation were spent on that. Years of work was spent on that, an extensive process of consultation, and the community was heard loud and clear on the future of Regan Park. Now, we did something in 2018, I think it was, where we made that decision to dedicate it to environmental purposes and pursue what has gone on nearer to the CBD. I think that's been very successful, and I certainly accept that that was never intended to be a long-term solution for Regan Park. There was never an intention that that would be dedicated to environmental things forever. And indeed, I don't think a lot of people here tonight would necessarily support that, because I know some of them have spoken out a lot about the old master plan, and the old master plan involved a mix of things. So, you know, that thing that we did in 2018 is certainly not something that is set in concrete. But this idea that it's replaced, or that those two decisions are replaced at the last minute with in-principle support to hand in public land to private interest, I could never ever support that, and I certainly won't support it going forward. Now, in saying that, I don't have a closed mind at all about sporting fields on the side of the river, or even potentially sporting fields in Regan Park. I certainly think it's greater as it is, and like many people, I walk there regularly, but if we had community consultation and people in the community supported that and we decided that was an appropriate thing to do, well, I might even support it, though I bring environmental concerns very much to the fore in all the decisions I make at council. So I just wanted to say those things on the record so that people understand that what we've done tonight is not supporting what had been proposed at the last meeting. It's not that at all. It's not to be understood as rescinding the idea that Regan Park is for environmental purposes. No, it's not that. It's simply charting a new way forward and consulting after staff bring a proposal to us on a whole plan for the river corridor, which obviously includes Regan Park.
Further comment or debate, councillors? No, I'll put that. All those in favour? No, carried. Now we move to reports from staff. CCL 21/44, draft planning agreement with the Ungla Wind Farm, results of public exhibition. Can I have a mover of that one, please? Move Councillor Grant, seconded Councillor Ryan. Any discussion or debate on that matter? Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Once again, I just want to congratulate staff on this great outcome for the, I suppose, Dubbo Regional Council and the wider community. You know, when you look at $320,000 a year coming into council, and obviously, you know, the community being able to have a slice of that in different projects, and also council, you know, looking at strategic options. I really am looking forward to seeing what comes out of that, and I just once again wanted to congratulate council and council staff.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Any further comment or discussion? No, I'd like to Councillor Grant is absolutely right when it comes to the sheer amount of money coming into the community from this. It's just phenomenal. I'll point out the previous Badengra wind farm was bringing in, I think, $50,000 a year for community use. Well, now we're into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the negotiation which we've been able to do is just beyond all expectations from myself, and this is going to be money that we can channel right back into the community, not just through those community groups, but also through essential infrastructure, and that from what we do, what we provide as a council, noting that we are all about and totally 100% community owned. So, look, I'd certainly congratulate the staff on this level of negotiation, but I'd also like to congratulate the company who has proposed this, that they understand that working hand in hand with the community is not just the moral thing to do, but also the most viable way to go ahead moving forward business-wise as well. They will have a much better and more prosperous business if they work with the community, as opposed to just doing the bare minimum they have to do. So congratulations not just to the staff, but also to this company who has chosen Wellington and is setting up shop here and is going to contribute a hell of a lot to our economy. I'll now put that. All those in favour? No, carried. Clear it, carried. Now we go to CCL 21/45, post-exhibition planning proposal 2R Gilgenja Road and 63 Fitzroy Street in Dubbo. Can I have a mover of that one, please? Move Councillor Etheridge, seconded Councillor Parker. Any discussion or debate on that one? No, I put that. All those in favour? No, carried. CCL 21/46, planning proposal Keswick RSL. Can I have a mover of that? Move Councillor Moore, seconded Councillor Gumley. Any discussion or debate on that matter? No, I'll put that. All those in favour? No, carried. Now we go to CCL 21/47, Dubbo Ballina Flights. Can I have a mover of that? Councillor Moore, seconded please. Councillor Ryan. Any discussion or debate on that matter? No, I put that all those in favour. Carried. CCL 21/48, Investment Policy and Strategy Review of 2021. Can I have a mover of that one, please? Move Councillor Diffie, seconded Councillor Etheridge. Any discussion or debate on that one? Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'd like to declare a significant pecuniary interest in the matter before the Council and will leave the room and be out of sight during discussion of this. The reasons being that the Bank of Queensland, I'm an employee of such, and Council has investments with that particular bank. Thank you.
Any further comment or debate? Councillors? No, I put that all those in favour. No, carried. If someone can invite Councillor Parker back into the room, thank you. Okay, so now we start at comments and matters of urgency. This month we'll start at Councillor Parker.
Nothing of matter of urgency, Mr Mayor. But, to Michael, I've known him for about 3.5 years. I've never seen him be so happy. You're obviously looking forward to it. I'd like to just reflect on a couple of quotes on retirement. The first one was made by George Foreman, the actual retired boxer, and his quote is, "The question is at what age I want to retire. It's at what income." And the second one is by someone unknown. "The challenge of retirement is how to spend time without spending money." So you've got a few challenges in front of you, and I guess your wife has too, putting up with you for a little fair bit long more every day now. So, look, just, turn yourself in the role. All the very best for your health and whatever you do going forward. And thank you for your efforts here in Dubbo whilst you've been here. And certainly, once again, all the very best. Thank you.
Councillor Lawrence.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just a few things. I won't take too long. Just firstly, I thought I might explain why I've got this horrible haircut. And the reason for that is that I was asked by Headspace a couple of weeks ago, I think it was an invitation to you, Mr Mayor, but you were doing something else, but to attend to launch an event of training young students who were being trained to be wellbeing ambassadors in our schools across Western New South Wales. And that was a really great thing to attend, and I stayed for a bit of the workshop, and basically the kids were being trained by Headspace and another organisation to be mental health ambassadors in their schools, which involves, I think, some basic training to be able to identify people that might be in a bit of trouble and to provide, basic advice and referrals and stuff particularly. So really positive. So the event today was to raise money for a similar program, but one that's designed to operate in the community for people aged 18 to 25. So it was good to be a part of it, and the way that they wanted to raise money was to have an auction bid for people to shave their heads. So I did that. Just also wanted to say a few things about the attack that occurred in the last week on our local MP's family. And some people might have seen that reported in the newspaper and on the ABC. And basically what occurred, I think people are probably aware, was that a person campaigning on the Stop the River Street Bridge issue, which is something dear to people's hearts here, including mine, chose through the Anyone But Nats Dubbo page to put up a post saying some things about organisations in the community that had received grants from the government, and members of our local MP's family work for them, including his daughter, who's a very young woman who started working there, I think, a year after the grant was given. The suggestion in the post that there is something untoward about the giving of those grants in the context of our MP's family working there is completely absurd. seems to me to be highly defamatory. There was no provision in the post of any of the facts that would enable the person reading it to understand just how bogus it was. It was raised, Mr Mayor, as you're aware, in the press conference at Parliament House when Karina McLaughlin, who's one of those very passionate people about stopping the River Street Bridge, was talking to the statewide press. And perhaps unusually for Ms McLaughlin, she was confronted by statewide political journalists who actually threw some hard questions at her. And she was asked about this post. She certainly denied having made it, but she said something that is obviously very telling, which is, as far as I'm aware, his daughter's an adult. Now, it's difficult to interpret that comment as anything other than a resounding endorsement of the post. And I just wanted to say, because I've gone to events that she's hosted in the past, and so have you, Mr Mayor, and other people on this council have, and we've certainly associated ourselves with stopping the River Street Bridge, that I thought that post was completely beyond the pale, completely disgusting, and obviously breached this convention that people observe in the community, which is that politicians' family members are completely off limits. There was nothing legitimate about that post. It was completely specious. And I just want to distance myself from the fact that it was made by someone associated with a movement that I myself have been associated with. And I want to distance myself and condemn the comments by Karina, which clearly endorsed it. On a more positive note, I also wanted to acknowledge that Michael McMahon, our CEO, is soon to retire. I've been greatly assisted by you, Michael, your wisdom, your experience, your knack at getting the right outcomes and making the right decisions. You obviously came to us at a difficult time, late in 2017, and I was a new councillor at the time, and I've certainly been greatly assisted by you and your wisdom. Certainly grown to consider you a friend and a mate. Certainly hope that we stay in contact. Just want to wish you all the best in your retirement. Thank you.
Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of quick things. First one is our pedestrian bridge over the Wellington Bell River Bridge. Just wondering where we're up to on that. We can do you can mention to Mr Geddes.
Yeah, so we're not far off some sort of, we're
Good,
still...
Yeah. No, that's right. I only raised it because of Councillor Gumley's mention about the infrastructure grants, so I'd like to see, obviously, that project happening. I'd like to reiterate the words of Councillor Lawrence, and that's, that attack on Dougal and his family is absolutely disgraceful. It does not belong in today's community and today's world at all. So it's too much of it goes on, and footballers and whatever, they get attacked so often as well. So it's just not on. And then finally, look, Michael, thank you. Wishing you all the best in your retirement. I think you look too young to retire, but anyway, that's just putting it out there. But no, look, all the best, and I hope that your retirement is what you hope, and that's you've enjoyed your time with us here. Thank you.
Councillor Diffie. Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I too want to pass on my probably dissatisfaction about that Facebook post to Dougal Saunders, and particularly his family. It's absolutely disgraceful, it's uncalled for, and people like that should wake up to themselves. The mental health that could have on particularly young people when attacked in the media later on in life could be significant. I too, like Councillor Lawrence, have distanced myself from particularly that group, and they are all off my Facebook page, and I will not be adding them back on because I find it absolutely disgraceful, and it wrecked that campaign by one stupid person. On another note, Mr Mayor, we do know it's Michael McMahon's last meeting. I'm glad Michael, when he joined Dubbo Regional Council, didn't come to our council and just lay around like a lizard. He actually was the road runner from the day that he got here. He has probably been put under extreme pressure, especially with the drought, COVID-19. Now we have a mice plague, maybe a flood. You'll be gone by then, I hope. But thank you, Michael, particularly the work that you have done for this council and this great city. It has moved forward exceptionally under your leadership. 40 years in public service is tremendous time. I can no doubt the stories that you could tell would be absolutely remarkable. And we know from travelling around local government conferences that the McMahon name is a well-known brand within inside local government, and particularly your brother now has been called out of retirement to go and be general manager at a council that's just been put into administration. So that's the opportunity that you have had and Les have had in local government. You're well respected. Your ideas and your thoughts are always taken on board. So thank you very much, and thank you for everything that you have done, particularly for me in your time in the chair. I appreciate that, and I dare say we will be catching up after your retirement, and I'm sure Narelle, your lovely wife, has plenty of jobs for you to do. And I don't know about that bit about spending money, because I think plenty of that's going to happen. Well done. Thanks, Michael.
Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I too want to echo the concerns I have about that Facebook post. I spoke to Dougal Saunders about this and publicly or told him that I thought it was incredibly unacceptable, and it really concerns me that as a council we have been fairly firm against the River Street Bridge for all sorts of legitimate reasons. So for someone to use the vehicle that is making a public protest against something which we believe to be wrong is just so so stupid on so many levels. The very important personal nature of this at the moment is that Mr Saunders' wife and daughter in particular are getting all the support that they need. He's assured me that that's the case. It brings to mind Winston Churchill when, during the dark days of World War II, when Britain stood alone, and then one night everyone woke up to find that Soviet Russia had been invaded by the Nazi war machine, and journalists asked Winston Churchill about it, and he had been a long and solid opponent of communism, and he said that he would unsay no word that he had said against communism, but that the Nazi war machine was the greater evil, and he would do whatever he could to fight against it. So it just shows how a statesman like him can disentangle two matters. So while I will never back down on my dissatisfaction with the River Street Bridge, I cannot be stronger in my condemnation of the person or persons who personally attacked the family of an MP. He's just doing his job, and his family have nothing to do with that. On a far more positive nature, Michael, thank you very much. You have helped me over some things, and you have prevented me from making some public missteps in the past few years. You signed on for 3 months, and we've been at you, and we've kept you here a bit longer than that, more than 3 years. You came into a council that had been amalgamated, and that's an incredibly difficult thing. I was talking to a councillor at Sydney City on the first local government conference that I went to, which has been described by some local media as my travel route. But anyway, the councillor told me that after 12 years since the last amalgamation that Sydney City had been involved in, they still hadn't coordinated all their rates, all their services, all their costs and charges, and that was when it hit me what an amazingly complex and difficult job it is. And when you have an amalgamation, because it's difficult and because staff have got extra work to do along with their own work, a lot of people will find greener pastures, and it's difficult to attract people, especially for the very highly specialised positions. Thank you very much. The last time I counted, there are 12 million reasons that Dubbo ratepayers have to thank you. The savings you've found by the auditing of all our expenses, by looking at things in a different light and thinking, how can we do this better? How can we get more competitive costs? Our telephone bill, 750 grand a year, just by the fact that you bothered to look at it. So thank you very much for all you've done.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I also would like to say something about what happened to our state member. I think it's absolutely disgraceful that anyone should go down that path. His family should be completely out of reach for anything like that. Any of us that put our hands up to be in politics, be it state, federal or local, we can expect to be attacked. But as far as family is concerned, I think that's very, very wrong. As far as Michael is concerned, I wish you all the best in your retirement.
Councillor Etheridge.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think a lot's been said tonight about that post. That post should never have been put up, and just a totally unthinking person doing such a terrible thing to someone else, I just find totally abhorrent. I don't know what makes a person do that to another person and his family. I'm just gobsmacked for it. I'm lost for words. So I'll leave that at that. There's no way that I support it in any way, shape or form. Not at all. Or the woman that put it up. Done. Finished. And Michael, ditto for everything that everybody else has said.
Councillor Gumley.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. It's always difficult being at the end of the row at times like this because it just sounds like the council's banging on about the same issues. But there are two issues that have been raised in the comments and matters of urgency tonight which deserve as much attention as they can get. The first one, of course, is the negative, the comments levelled at our local member and more particularly towards his family. There's plenty that's been said tonight, but it really deserves, the comments deserve to be called out for the putrid behaviour that it is. Levelling comments that were made, attacking family members of politicians, as Councillor Lawrence said. Effectively, there's the unwritten rule that family's untouchable, and somebody chose to cross that line to make a point, perhaps out of desperation. Councillor Ryan mentioned, of course, that he'll be steadfast in his opposition to the bridge, which precipitates all of these groups and has culminated in this behaviour. But sadly, I suspect that there will be scores and scores of people in the community who will not be so steadfast in their opposition in the face of behaviour that they have witnessed by the people that say that they are leading such an opposition. People don't want to be associated with behaviour like that, quite rightly, and as a result, it's difficult to get the community excited about something as it is, but in the face of those sorts of comments, I suspect there'll be plenty of people who walk away from the whole issue. The second issue that I wish to speak to is more positive. Of course, the retirement of the CEO, although that in itself is not particularly positive so far as I'm concerned, but I'm sure it's positive for him and his family. I say congratulations and thank you. I hope that the achievements here at the Dubbo Regional Council are effectively the crown, the jewel in the crown of your career. You came into a particularly difficult situation as regards the amalgamation. That would be difficult for anyone, but certainly from where I sat, it may have been a duck sitting on the water, but everything seemed to be going pretty smoothly, and I think that's evidenced by the comments that the Mayor has made in the past that there's only 2 councils still standing as the outfall of the amalgamation processes that can say that they have been successful, and that's largely due to your guidance. As Councillor Lawrence said, being a new council, it's always appreciated to have people guiding you in the right direction and being someone that you can go to when you need some advice. And I thank you for that, and I wish you all the best in your retirement.
Okay, well, thank you, councillors. I'll have my go now. Look, councillors, I certainly agree with everything that's been said around the table tonight when it comes to that Facebook post. I was in Sydney during that press conference. I was in Sydney for that hearing by for that debate in the Legislative Assembly, and I can tell you now, not only was that post just ridiculous and wrong, offensive, and yes, it's also, councillors, it also goes against any good moral behaviour as well to bring councillors into... Sorry, is that...
There's a delay on the stream.
Right. Okay. It's also morally wrong too, councillors, to, again, engage with councillors, engage in any elected members' families like that. Just plain wrong. But also strategically wrong as well. All that work that went into opposing the River Street Bridge, the entire day was practically put from myself and the other two councillors who went down to Sydney to help argue for a better outcome for River Street Bridge. So much energy was put into dousing those flames that the people who are opposing River Street Bridge, not all of us, are a bunch of ratbags. It's as simple as that. There are genuine concerns about River Street Bridge, namely not even having a footpath, namely being so high off the ground, and there's a multitude of different reasons why River Street Bridge is bad. But then to come to Parliament and to have it effectively ruined by someone who clearly has no idea what they're doing and also just seeking to score nasty points, it's just so disappointing, let's put it that way. On to the other one tonight that needs to be mentioned, Michael McMahon. Yes, it is your end of 42, 41 years of a local government career. And Michael did come to us only originally on 3 months. He was put on for effectively. He came to us and he's lived through several big crises, some that had made that the public are aware about, some that the public aren't aware about. We've seen everything now from industrial issues right through to the continual crisis of the merger, right through to the drought crisis, the COVID crisis. In fact, anywhere there's been a crisis that needs to be managed, you call on Michael McMahon, he's your crisis manager. In fact, it looks like there could be a crisis over the coming days on this flood if it does hit Dubbo, so it's just one last crisis for you to handle while you're in the chair. But look, Michael, there is no doubt that this city, this region, in fact, owes you a great deal of gratitude for what you have been able to do for this community after the absolute bomb going off, which was effectively the amalgamation. You put the ship back together. You set it on the right course. You got everything as best as physically, humanly possible for a local government area to not only grow but thrive. And it's been mentioned quite a lot that out of the 20 plus odd local government areas out there, there's only really 2 or 3 that is going successful, either financially or politically. There's so many of those merged councils now. There's actively near riots in the street and massive petitions to demerge, and there's other councils where the staff and the councillors just can't get on and their administration, and that's not to mention Central Coast, with literally hundreds of millions of dollars debt. Well, exactly the opposite here in Dubbo. We have seen our council being pretty much in financial good nick. Some of the cost savings that you have been able to achieve for our residents, our ratepayers, has just been nothing more than phenomenal. And from a personal note, knowing that I could come to the building each day and someone who will be there and is just very, very frank and just tell me how it is, has been a great help to me as Mayor. I certainly could not have been as good a Mayor if it wasn't for your guidance and your occasional kick under the table. It's certainly been a big help to me, and Michael, thank you very much for what you've done for the Dubbo region. It's something that you will go down in the history books as being one of Dubbo's great public servants, and thank you. Okay, councillors. Sorry? Oh, yes, and I'd like to hear, yes.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. Look, it certainly is an important day for me. It's my last council meeting. I did a quick calculation. I've been going to council's meetings since for 39 years. I just did a quick calculation, probably in excess of 5,000 meetings I've attended. And that comes from the early days of the early 82 when I first started coming to council meetings at North City Council, right through to today with either weekly or sometimes even twice weekly council meetings. Some of those meetings went from, from a couple of hours right to about 7.5 hours to 8 hours a day, usually starting at 7:30 or going through to about 3 or 4 in the morning. So you can see that, in fact, there's been interesting times in governance practices and ways in which council meetings are held. I can say that, in fact, I'm very proud of the work that I've been able to do at Dubbo Regional Council. I've got a tremendous, talented executive leadership team here, capable of, in fact, continuing on with the good work that's being done. Dean, as the new acting CEO, certainly is going to be, he'll be able to do it very well with the support of his team. The organisation itself, the staff, I'm very proud of the fact that they've been able to, in fact, work through difficult times with some challenging activities over the last 3.5 years, since I've been here, and they've done it with flying colours. I take my hat off also to the councillors here. The dedication and support that you show to your community, the work that you do tirelessly throughout the year, shouldn't be taken for granted. It's a tremendous asset you have in advocating and also supporting your community. So keep up the good work. On behalf of my wife, Narelle, who might be watching tonight on webcam, and I've asked her to, in fact, watch it tonight. Hello. I'd like to say I'm looking forward to spending a bit more time with you and the family. Unfortunately, when you have a job as a CEO for over 30 years and you've worked in councils for 41, sometimes your family life is disadvantaged by the virtue of here for long hours of time. That's part of what you give up, but I'm looking forward to giving it a bit back. So thanks very much for your kind words tonight and comments, and thanks for everyone's support over the last 3.5 years. Look forward to that retirement going forward, for Easter break coming forward after that, and looking forward to my many years of spending time in the central region of New South Wales and also in the city as well, looking after my family and friends. So thanks again. Appreciate it.
To move into Committee of the Whole. Move Councillor Etheridge, second Councillor Grant. Any discussion or debate on that matter? No, I put that all as in favour. No, carried. I'd like to thank members of the public and the media for your attending here tonight at the March meeting of Dubbo Regional Council. We are now moving into Committee of the Whole, which is a closed meeting for confidentiality, commercial and confidence purposes. Can I have the Executive Manager, CEO Services, to read the report of the Committee of the Whole, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In regards to the report CW 21/3, acquisition of easements for Wellington non-potable pipeline project, number one, Council acquire an easement area of 9,079.54 metres squared for a pipeline over Lot 2 DP 1136578 from the landowner for $10,000 excluding GST. Number two, that Council acquire an easement with an area of 2,487.69 metres squared for a pipeline over Lot 2 DP 806578 from the landowner for $10,000 excluding GST. Number three, that Council acquire an easement area of 1,540.97 metres squared for a pipeline over Lot 272 DP 560497 from the landowner for $7,000 excluding GST. Number four, that the purchase prices be adjusted on a pro rata basis if adjustments to the size of the area to be acquired are necessary. 5, that Council be responsible for all surveying costs associated with the registration of the easements. 6, that the Chief Executive Officer be authorised to finalise the acquisition of the 3 easements. 7, that all documentation in relation to the acquisition of this easement be executed under power of attorney. And 8, that all documents in consideration in regards to this matter remain confidential to council.
Okay, can I have a mover of that one, please? Move Councillor Etheridge. A seconder, please. Councillor Grant, discussion or debate? No, I put that. All those in favour? All right, no, carried. Okay. Councillors, that concludes the March meeting of Dubbo Regional Council. I'd like to thank you for your attendance.